Hi there, Brimstone. How are you doing? We'll do a quick sound check. Can you hear me? Hi there, Max. Howdy. Hey, Foxy. Oh, you're going to a game. Yep. Hope you have fun. Yeah, I'm doing alright for the most part. Hope you guys are doing well. Hey, Anonymous. Wait a few more moments and then we'll get rolling. I'll do some cutesy furry stuff in the meantime, keep you entertained. Yeah, Foxy, I know who you are. Yeah. Hi, Ruzu. It's good to see you. Max is waiting for a daily delivery. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Brimstone. All right, without further ado. Fair warning, I'm gonna use quite a bit of puns. Let's get started. So, howdy everyone. I'm Stalkaz the Stallion. For those who don't know, uh, yeah, today I'm celebrating my 5-year anniversary. Another pun. 5 years on YouTube. Now I don't know the exact date of when I first uploaded my first video, but I just know it was April 2020, so close enough. Thanks, Aruzu. All right, take care, Foxy. Yeah, 5 years ago is when it all started. So I'll try to do like a brief chronology. Won't get too much into the weeds. So I got this fursuit back in October of 2019 from Roofer. They are the folks I commissioned from. Really highly recommend in case you guys are looking for a fursuit commission. Highly recommend. Really a pleasure to work with. Decent prices, good quality as far as I'm concerned. So that's what all got started. And for the first few months or so, I really haven't worn my fursuit on my house. And it's like, um, yeah, people need to see this. It's a nice fursuit, I think. And what better way to do it than upload on YouTube? So before I actually started my YouTube channel, I went to my very first furry convention. That was Capital City FurCon in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, back in January of 2020. That's my only BC convention. BC standing for before COVID. And since it's somewhat local, about 35 minutes away from me, decided to hop in my car, drive down for the day. On that one day, and I had a lot of fun. I did not take my fursuit with me, just kind of wanted to see what it was like to go to a furry convention. So I went there, got registered, just kind of ambled about the place. Yeah, went to a few panels. Like there was one on TikTok, even though I'm not a TikToker. Just went there to see what it was like, just to kill some time. Went to the dealer's den, Let's see. Went to a couple other panels. There was one on photography. There was one on philosophy and politics. Who, and, and at the end of the day, there was for a YouTube panel hosted by Odin Wolf, Safi, and Zusha Wolf, and so that was really cool. And so I had a really fun experience. It's unfortunate that was the first and last iteration of that convention. Do some misdeeds behind the scenes. If you want to do research on your own time, you can find out the exact reasons. But despite that, I had a fun time. And then, of course, we all got slapped broadside on the face with COVID, turned everything upside down, topsy turvy. But out of that, basically, that's when I started working from home. So, and at that time, it gave me more time to like pursue other things. So that's when I started to start my channel. So I started to draw, do art, and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of what the catalyst that got the ball rolling there. Hey, Robert. Hey, Revinks. Good to see you. So yeah, so like I wasn't sure what exactly to do. So the first thing I did was I just uploaded a random video just showing my fursuit, just kind of just turning around, showing off my fursuit, kind of like this. It's called Stalkaz style. It says hello or hi or something to that effect. So it's just like hi, I'm Stalkaz, just my fursuit, and yes, sort of that sort of thing. And one of the people that commented on the video is like, hey, you should upload more videos. So then I started making it like a weekly occurrence. Yeah, so so this is every Saturday I will record video. I'll do all the recording, all the editing, decide the thumbnail, upload. And of course it was a learning experience. I kind of like learned as I went, and yeah, just every week I would come up with different ideas of different things to do and throw stuff out there, and then yeah, and let's see. And then finally, of course, things slowly started opening back up after the pandemic subsided. And then I went to my next convention, which was Philadelphia in 2021. And that was one of the first conventions back after the lockdown. I think Megaplex was the very first official one to reopen. And then the following week was Philadelphia in August of 2021. And that was the first like full-fledged convention I went to. At that time, it was held at the Valley Forge Convention Center and Casino. And a really nice area. And so yeah, I went there for the whole weekend. First time I wore my fursuit. Effectively, first time outdoors, really. And so that was a experience to say the least. And then fast forward again, I've gone to Anthrocon ever since 2022. 2022 was the first Anthrocon back from the lockdown. I've been going there every year ever since. Every Philadelphia. Well, then for 2022, I just went down for the day because like the expenses started piling up and all that. So I just drove down there for the day, did my day thing. But then for 2023 and 2024, I've been going to both conventions in their entirety. Ever since 2 years ago, I started going to New Year's Furry Ball. I regret not going sooner because that's a blast. It's kind of like a mini con slash like giant party. Really fun, especially if you don't have any other plans or don't get invited anywhere. It's what better way to do it than invite yourself to that. So that's always fun. So yeah. And then if you guys don't know, this is my furry wall. This is all my furry stuff, my badge, all the con books, my con badges, all that sort of stuff. So slowly getting filled up here. Might have to move to the back wall eventually. So let's see. Yeah, so I don't really have any sort of agenda or itinerary. Just kind of like play it by ear. I kind of want to reminisce a little bit more about like history of furry fandom and all that, because like it's anniversary. I'm kind of looking at the history of my channel and then kind of like the history of the furry fandom at large. It's kind of like my latest obsession. For those of you that know me, for some reason I stumble upon a topic and I immediately get like fixated and obsessed on it, and I like just do all this research, and it's I don't know, it's just the way I am. So that's my latest obsession is like the history of the fandom and all that. And yeah, so let's see. And then I think it was the beginning of 2022, I want to say, is when I decided to scale back on how much I upload. So I started, instead of every Saturday, I've been doing it every other Saturday. And then I kind of unofficially made the executive decision midway through this past year, 2024, to scale back even further and not have a regular upload schedule for a multitude of reasons. One, start running low on ideas. Two, trying to avoid burnout. And three, little disappointed with the lack of growth of my channel, the lack of like direction, and so it's not the end all be all, but it's unfortunate when you've been doing this for quite a while and there really isn't any trajectory at all, and the views, there's not the many views. I mean, you don't want to be like the next Majira necessarily, but also it's nice to see some sort of progress or growth or expansion. And when that doesn't occur, then it's like, you kind of read the handwriting on the wall or the hoof writing on the wall. So with that being said, yeah, so this is like, obviously I'm doing a live stream now. I've done a live stream after the New Year's Furry Ball for this past New Year. And then I did one after my trip from Italy. My dad and I went to Italy back in October. Did a whopping 3.5 hour live stream on that. That was a blast. If you guys want to check that out, it's still up there for you guys. Yeah, lots of pictures, lots of videos. So good stuff there. And of course, over the past suburbs, all my con stuff, like live streams at the Con in Philadelphia, the con videos. I've recorded like the opening ceremony, closing ceremony, like dance comps, all that sort of thing, and that's what I plan to do going forward. So again, I'm not gonna have a regular upload schedule. I'll just kind of throw out videos as they come along. They're kind of in a lull right now, an inactive period, but then over the summer, these will pick up with all the con stuff. Plus, I heard it was recently announced that furthermore, one of the furry conventions, it's going to return back to Baltimore next year. So it's a very good likelihood I'll be attending that next March because it's someone in the area. So that'll be exciting to do that. To get to go to yet another furry convention, so it's really cool. All right, Brimstone says, I enjoy your content, and I think you deserve way more subscribers than you have. Oh, I appreciate the sentiment, Brimstone. Thank you. So let's see here. Can't believe 5 years. Can you believe it? 5 years, half a decade. Where does the time go, right? Yeah, so like I said before, I also do art, and like I know a number of people ask me if I do commissions. I don't. That may change in the future, but right now I don't do commissions just because, again, I want to avoid the burnout, and my time is somewhat limited because I do have a full-time day job, which unfortunately it's been increasingly more and more demanding and stressful, and so with that being said, that's kind of why I'm also scaling back and stuff. Hope things kind of settle down, but it's been some restructuring going on and a lot of changes in personnel and placements and all that, but we'll get too much into the weeds with that. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on and all that. So, but I love drawing. That ignited a passion in me 5 years ago. Been doing it ever since. So that's something I pretty much still do religiously, effectively every week. I do my art, and I do also run art raffles on Twitter/X. Without again being too repetitive. Another thing that hasn't really gotten traction. Like what I've been doing is like I would do it in goals of increments of 100. Like so, let's say if I were like at 1,300 followers, let's say the next time I hit 1,400 followers, I'll end the raffle, draw the 3 random numbers, and they will be the winners for the free art. So, in fact, the current one is still active. The problem being is that I not only did not yet hit my goal, the bottom kind of fell out from under me, and I actually dropped below my previous goal of 1,500. And a lot of that had to do like a lot of people have left X because of executive decisions or dissatisfaction, whatever. I mean, a multitude of different things. But the bottom line is, so I actually fell behind my previous goal. So, so if you're out there, if you're thinking about what's going on with the raffle, if miraculously I recover those 100+ followers and whatever, I will definitely draw your art. I always fulfill that obligation, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So don't hold your breath on that. Hi, Steam Pony. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing all right for the most part. Yeah, Brimstone. Yeah, your job's demanding too. Yeah, that's why they call it work after all. Yeah. For the few out there that are self-employed or find a way to make your hobbies and passions lucrative, more power to you. Yeah, that's a sweet spot right there. You find something that you enjoy? Like for instance, a lot of people in the furry fandom, like artists and fursuit makers and merch. I mean, sure, like there's not gonna be every day's not gonna be sunshine and unicorns or whatever the expression is, but if you like doing it, it's your hobby, it's your passion, and then to get paid for it is a bonus. So, yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm safe to say that nobody in my department or my team at work is passionate about our job. Like that's just to be completely honest. But you know what? It's a steady paycheck. You get benefits, and for a lot of people, that's what you look for. And I'm not picky either. That's why I'm still doing that job because it's nice to pay your bills. Yeah. All right, so as I mentioned before, I'm gonna kind of like do a lot of reminiscing, looking back in time. Oh, before I continue, I brought a little souvenir or show and tell for you. So some of you may or may not recognize this. We'll see. If this rings anyone's bell, does anyone recognize these things? So this was back, yeah, yeah, maybe not. So this was back in 2021 when Among Us was like the big craze, the game Among Us where like all the different astronauts on the ship, and then what happened is there's a certain number of quote unquote imposters, which are like people that are feigning astronauts, and in fact, they're murderers. So yeah, the imposter or imposters would murder the other crew, the crew or the innocent astronauts, and it's kind of like a who done it sort of thing. And the crew's job not only is the crew's job to figure out who the imposter is, but also like to complete their tasks. Like each one is assigned to a certain task on the spaceship. So if all the crew complete their tasks, the game automatically ends. The game also automatically ends if they're able to determine who the imposter is. So every time someone's killed and a body's discovered, they hold like a meeting, and then each person votes who they think the imposter is, and of course there's a discussion. And so the crew member who gets the most votes gets booted off, either if you're a crew member or an imposter. And of course, if the imposter is found out and booted off, you win. But let's say the imposter either kills everyone or all the crew is voted off, then the imposter wins. So it's a fun game. Kind of got a little stale after a while. They added like new courses, new maps. But anyway, just all that to say, so I did like a little parody with Among Us, little play acting. So what would I do is I would hard boil eggs and dye them different colors to represent the crew because they kind of resemble that egg shape. And then this is the button that you push to call a meeting. Yeah, so I made this like just regular construction paper and marker. And then this is like one of those containers that you buy like berries, at the grocery store, and another piece of construction paper. So yeah, what you do is you would open the case, and hit the button, and then that's how it calls a meeting. So anyway, little nostalgia there. I still save these. So yeah. All right. Now we can stroll down memory lane. So yeah. So for those of you who don't know about the history of the furry fandom, there's no one specific date when it all started. I mean, people have been furries since the dawn of time. But for all intents and purposes, it could be pretty much attributable to two specific people. There's Mark Merlino and Rod O'Reilly, also known as Rodney Stansfield. So there were two guys that lived in the Southern California area, and so they went to a lot of sci-fi conventions, like there's Lost Con and WesterCon, and all out and around the California area. And you can get a lot of this too, like the Ash Coyote's movie, The Fandom, the documentary that debuted in 2020, gives a lot of good information there, a lot of vintage footage. Also, you can find a lot of vintage footage on YouTube, which has been binge watching lately. A lot of old footage of old furry conventions, really cool stuff, like a gold mine as far as I'm concerned. It's always like going back in a time machine. Also, there's a few panels that they've hosted that talk about like the history. So they were going to these furry conventions, or excuse me, these sci-fi conventions, but there wasn't yet a furry convention. And then they would have these room parties on occasions, which was like mini conventions. So like there were a whole bunch of people that were quote unquote furries ended up hanging out at these room parties at sci-fi conventions. And then eventually they decided, hey, let's start our own convention and make it exclusively a furry convention. And thus, that's how the very first furry convention got started, and it was called Conference Zero. Conference, F-U-R. and it was held in Costa Mesa, California, in January of 1989. And so it was kind of like a test run. You know, it was like kind of like a beta testing sort of trial to see what it's going to be like. So that's why it's called zero rather than one. And so the turnout was about 60 or so people, and like it was an interesting experience for what I understand. There's actually a video out there on the Prancy Skill Tear channel that has footage of the very first convention, and it displays Hilda the Bambioid. It's a very famous fursuit. Some people call that like the very first fursuit, so to speak. And it was made and designed and worn by Robert Hill. And so he was a very talented artist and a talented fursuit. He made Hilda among other characters as well. And so there's footage of him dancing around as Hilda, footage of Rod O'Reilly at the DJ stand, getting down, boogieing, some others. There's footage of Ken Sample, who's a artist, a big name artist back in the day. So he's in there as well. Ken Sample's still around today. In fact, it looks like he's still doing art. He has a Fur Affinity page, still taking commissions. So, yeah, it's nice to see these fur fathers, I like to call them, still around and still active. And so from there, Conference 0 kicked off. And a lot of it was kind of like instead of panels, they had like a round table discussion. Like those like an hour talking about this thing, an hour talking about that subject, and like a lot of it was like planned. Like, what do you guys want to see in the future? What would you like our cons to be like? And that's how it kind of blossomed. And then it was such a success that they returned the following year and have Conference 1 and then Conference 2 and so on and so forth. And would move to various different venues and locations, and all the videos and then the further recorded panels explain like the specifics behind them all. And then eventually, Rod O'Reilly and Mark Merlino stepped down. By the way, I should actually, before I get too far, they both had their own personas, of course. Mark Merlino's persona was called Cy Sable, which is one of the mustelids. Now, Skill Tear actually is actually a sci-fi species. It's like a mustelid, a pine marten, so to speak, with antennae. And both he and Rod both really liked that species, and it's like, oh, I noticed that you have these pine martens. And that's kind of how what got the ball rolling, and how they do about the furry fandom and all that. And so that's why it's called the Skill Tear, and it's Prancy because he has like a top hat and cane, kind of performing, and their house is still there in Costa Mesa. Garden Grove, California. I'm on the East Coast, so you have to bear with me here. And they're still, to this day, I think they still hold parties on a monthly basis and get-togethers and meetups and all that, which is really cool. So the house is still there. Now, some sad news is that Mark Merlino unfortunately passed away last year, but Rod O'Reilly is still around. But yeah, so yeah, it's sad to see him go. But yeah, but he did a lot for the furry fandom. We have him to thank for a lot. And Britson says, I always enjoy listening to Uncle Kagi's stories about the history of the family. Yeah, Uncle Kagi, like he's a riot and a half. He's a character for sure. And Max says, really impressive. Wonder what fursona Uncle Kagi has, or at least originally used. Yeah, I'll get into that a little bit later. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys too much. But I just find this stuff fascinating, like how it all started. And I was just thinking, like, you know the old expression, those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it or condemned to repeat it. It's like, well, it's not always necessarily a bad thing, because like there's a lot of good stuff in history that I would love to see repeated. but basically just learn from our past mistakes. That's effectively the lesson. But just kind of interesting tidbit there. So then, yeah, so all throughout the 90s, we would have conference. Speaking of Uncle Kage, a.k.a. Dr. Samuel Conway, he's from the Philly area. So he flew out to some of the conferences back in the 90s, and you see some of him and some of the footage. He was always a character. And I remember, I think it was during the fandom, he interviewed him as well. And I think he came up with his fursona, which is a cockroach of all things. Kagemushi is the name of the cockroach. Because he was working on his computer, and all of a sudden, this random cockroach crawls across his monitor, and I think that's what gave him the idea to have the the fursona Kagemushi. Yeah, but most often he's not in a fursuit. He doesn't really show his fursona. He has himself in the signature white lab coat. That's how you easily recognize him, and he has that distinct voice. And so by 1994. Conference was literally the only furry convention. Then in 1994, what happened was they started this convention called Furtasticon, in parentheses, Conference East. And it was held in Philadelphia. Oh my god, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Philadelphia hasn't happened yet. In Philadelphia. Forgive me, I don't know the exact dates. But it was in 1994. It's kind of like the same as Conference Zero. It's kind of like a trial balloon sort of like test drive. And so that was the first furry convention on the East Coast. And so that was a raging success. So then the following year, in 1995, they held the Conference East 1 in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is outside the New York City area, just across the road from the the Newark International Airport. And there's some video footage on there too, and it's really really cool stuff. There's one guy just like recorded with his old VHS camcorder, and that night they did like a rave, what the equivalent of a rave is. Like they would do this thing called a masquerade, and so they would like do dancing, a whole bunch of cool '80s music. And then the masquerade is a common occurrence at every Comic Conference and also Conference East, where fursuits is such a novelty, it's such a rarity that the very few people that have fursuits would be showcased in what's called a masquerade, and they would have like a contest. So like the attendees would vote in their favorites. Now at Conference East, they actually had a panel with 3 judges, and they made their decisions. But it's always a treat. And then little by little, in addition to just showing the costume, they would perform acts like dancing. Some would do singing or short plays. Like it became more and more for performance art, and eventually that, of course, morphed into what's today's fursuit dance competitions. But that's kind of like the foundation for that. So it's really cool seeing all that. And then the following year, Conference East was moved out to Cleveland, Ohio in 1996. Now they were planning to do it again in '97, but things fell through and it kind of fizzled out. But the following year, in 1997, and this is where Uncle Kage comes into the mix, is when he started Albany Anthrocon in Albany, New York. And now it's obviously closer than the Uncle Kage did the West Coast. So I believe he attended that, and then he was invited to be guest of honor the following year in 1998, which he accepted that. And there's a whole ton of footage of 1998's Albany Anthrocon. You see him all over the place, doing like hosting charity auction. And then there's footage of the very first Uncle Kage story hour, and a whole bunch of other goodies. And so at the conclusion of the con, he was advised that the chair of Albany Anthrocon is going to step down, and he asked Uncle Kage if he would like to take over. And he accepted, and voila, the rest is history. That's how Anthrocon came about. So then the following year, in 1999, he moved it down to Valley Forge, just outside of Philly, in his area. And then it was held there up until 2005. Now, for a while, it was held at Valley Forge a couple years. Then he moved to Adams Park Hotel in Philadelphia City proper. And then, unfortunately, the hotel was demolished, I think, in 2004. So they were scrambling to find a new location. So in 2005, they held it at I believe it's called the Wyndham Hotel, which is today the Sheraton, which ironically is where the Philadelphia is currently held. And so just for that 1 year, it was held at that hotel. And then in 2006, he moved it out to Pittsburgh, and it's been there ever since. It's really impressive. Oh, okay. Yeah, I love the old footage too. It's nice. Yeah, so like all the way up to that, like all this old footage is on people's VHS recorders, and then from 2006 onward, like some people started doing like digital recording. And just last night, I was watching footage of 2006's Anthrocon, and I believe that was like the first digital footage I found. Like you could tell the difference, and I believe it was like a German company like put the con film together into 2 parts, and it looks like really professionally done. It's like a quantum leap in terms of technology. And already then, the first suits started looking really, really nice. Like, started looking, quote-unquote, more, like, contemporary. And it's been an evolution ever since. But before I get too far, going back to the Conference East in New Jersey, there's a video done by this individual called Rapid Rabbit. You may or may not have heard of him. I haven't heard of him until very recently. The guy's name was Robert Concepcion. He lived in Queens, New York, and he had this public access show called Rapid Rabbit and Friends, and he was a furry, had a white rabbit persona, and he like would do weekly shows on various subjects. I know, admittedly, I've only ever watched the one episode about to talk about, the Conference East episode. So he actually went to this Conference East and had footage showing like the dealer's den, him in fursuit, showing like that masquerade and all that. And so that was really cool to see all that. Oh yeah, and Uncle Kage makes a debut there and says some funny stuff. It's like, Look at all the fun we're having, and here you are sitting in this guy's living room, pointing to the camera guy. It's like, don't you feel like a jerk? Yeah. Yeah, Uncle Kage, like if you ever meet him in person, he's a riot. He's just so funny. His dry sense of humor, wittiness. So everywhere he goes, like he does his Uncle Kage story hour, definitely a highlight of a con. But unfortunately, eventually in 2017, Robert Concepcion passed away suddenly, and he left us. He left us, which is sad. Also, and then the following year, in 2018, Robert Hill, who had the Bambio the fursuit, he passed away in 2018. So that's unfortunate as well. So it's unfortunate all these people are departed before I had a chance to like appreciate them more while they're here, or even possibly meet them and express how grateful and how many contributions they had to us. But at least it's done posthumously as well, which is always nice. Yeah, so the bambioid species, similar to the skill tears, they're kind of like I guess, an alien species. So like more sci-fi. I'm not a huge sci-fi person, other than like Star Wars, so you have to forgive me in my limited knowledge. But there is these female deer or does from this specific planet called Bambi. Oh, they're called the Bambioids, and then they're drawn by Jerry Collins. He was like a comic book artist, and I believe he's still around. And so, yeah, so that's how the Bambioid species came about. So all throughout the 90s too, and then every so often it would have this newsletter called Information, and of course prior to the internet, this is how everyone kept up with all the news, tell about all the different announcements, all the different goings on. There's like a paper to fill out if you want to attend different conventions, send a check or money order. That's how everyone kept abreast with all the current events prior to the internet. And little by little, you see new cons popping up. They started doing, Megaplex started up. And let's see what else was there. Oh, FWA for Weekend Atlanta. That's you can see the announcements for that, and then the Anthocons will start popping up. And at 2000. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around. I try to keep it in chronological order. I know, so going back to Rapid T Rabbit, he was the guest of honor at the inaugural Midwest Fur Fest outside of Chicago in 2000. So that was really cool. So it's crazy. Like it starts as a little tiny spark, and then now it's a giant conflagration. And we fast forward to 2024, with the Anthocon having over 17,000 attendees, starting from the 60 at Conference Zero, and that's just the one convention. Yeah, Anthocon 2024, the first, is now the number one, the biggest furry convention in the world, and not to mention all the other hundreds of conventions all throughout the U.S. and all throughout the world. Yeah. So, pretty much said my piece on that. So. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting information out there, a lot of good footage. Yeah, I hope someday, hopefully I'll have the chance to meet, Ryle O'Reilly in person. Uncle Kage, I have seen in person a couple times since I do attend AfterCon. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Hmm. Yeah, the weather's been kind of on the cool side this month. Yeah, it hasn't been very spring-like here. It's been very cold and cloudy and rainy. Hopefully that'll snap and we'll get some good springtime weather here. For those of you who don't know about my channel, yeah, so I do like a wide variety of stuff, or I have done it, like random like furry related subjects, like how to go like guide to cons. I've done, I play the oboe, so I do various videos of me playing that instrument. I've done cooking videos, I do drawings, speed paints, and then also just do like art, showcasing my art. I've done like some comedy stuff. Pretty much done it all. Some silly dancing, of course, not anything serious like you'll see at comps, because yeah, but do stuff like that. Yeah. Rizzo asks if I met Race. Yes, I have. Yeah, like he's one of my favorite dancers. Speaking of dancing, yeah, you see him a lot at Philadelphia Anthocon, a whole bunch of other cons up and down the East Coast. Very talented dancer, and he has like a ton of different fursuits as well. So yeah, yeah, it's always a privilege to meet him. Goes by the name Twilight Saint. Raises the Dino Dog persona, but he also has like the sniper persona. I'm not exactly sure the species. And most recently, he has the sniper first. Oh, not sniper. Oh my god, the rampage, which is like kind of like a hornet or a yellow jacket fursuit. That's really cool. Yeah. But whenever he dances like in competitions, he's always as Rays, and that's my favorite of his anyway. And like his dance style, like everyone has like their own distinct dance style. I love his because a lot of it's like urban, like hip hop, but it's not exclusively that. And he does like a lot of comedic themes, and I just love his motions. And one thing I've noticed, like with his music cuts at the very end, he always has like that jet engine playing with a crash like in the background. That's always his thing, like his signature at the end. Yeah. Yeah, the fursuit dance competitions are always one of my favorite events at the furry conventions. Of course, when it comes to cons, it's pretty much one of those choose your own adventure sort of things. Like there's no right or wrong way to do a con. Some people go just to hang out with friends. Others go for just shopping at the dealer's den. Some go for like the panels. Some go for the dance comp or Dungle Cocky Story Hour or sort of thing. I mean, there's some cons that parades, others don't. So like there's you just kind of pick and choose. A lot of times it's prioritization. I've mentioned it several times before. Like Anticon and Freedom are kind of like polar opposites, not only geographically opposite ends of the state, but Anticon, of course, is ginormous. It's what I call one of the mega cons. Like there's Anticon, Midwest Fur Fest, FWA. Those are the three mega cons, and then everything else. Then there's like kind of like the level two, which is like the big cons, kind of like your TFF, which is this weekend. Your Megaplex. Let's see, BLFC. After New England's getting up there, Further Confusion in San Jose, California. Those are like the second tier, and then you have like kind of like your third tier, which is like the medium tier, which is what I classify like Philadelphia, for instance. And so the thing is with the Anticon, there's more opportunities, more people. The downside is because there's so many people, you have your lines. You just a lot of it's a game of hurry up and wait. You have to rush to get places, and have stand in long lines for a while just because of the volume of people there. The parade goes on seemingly for an eternity. Like in the very beginning, the parade was like what, like 5 minutes or so, but now it's almost like over an hour and a half, just because there's so many fursuiters and all that. Um, but the nice thing about Philadelphia and smaller cons is that just not as hectic. It's more low pace, not as tiring. You don't have to deal with the lines. It seems more personal. Yeah, it's just so there's pros and cons to both different types. Bristol says, if I ever get time off from work, I'd like to attend con. Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah. I just regret that I haven't gone to cons my younger years. Like I said, I always started going in 2020. I wish I would have gone. And I think the main reason was I just didn't have the desire to go to one, which I really wish I did. 'Cause I'm still not really that much of a social person. I'm an introvert. But like I'm watching all this old con footage, and now I'm starting to watch more quote unquote contemporary cons. Take that as you will. Like the late 2000s going into the 2010s. And like, damn, I missed out on so much. I wish I would have gone to these. Yeah. But it's, like the old saying goes, better late than never. The nice thing about the dealer's den is, because a lot of these dealers, their products are available online to order, but at the dealer's den, there may or might not be a discount, but at the very least, you get it right then and there, and you don't have to pay for shipping, so that's already a bonus. So at every Korean convention, I usually end up buying at least one thing. I would love to buy more stuff, but obviously you'll have to watch your spending and don't go overboard. But that's always a fun thing, going to the dealer's den and Artist Alley. Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Anthrocon, I will be going again this year, Pittsburgh. The drawback is there's a little bit of snafu with like the registration. So ironically, I was over in Rome when registration opened up back in October. But I was at my hotel and I had Wi-Fi there, and so it rolled around time for the con. I was watching the clock like a hawk, so I go in to submit my registration because I want to get super sponsor again, like I always do. So I have a decent shot at getting a room at the Westin, which is the main hotel. And what did you know it? The hotel website crashes with an error. I'm like, oh. So I tried again, error, again, error. And then at this point, my dad's getting antsy because he wants to get something for dinner. I'm getting hungry. I'm like, okay. So I give up and go, and I come back about an hour and a half later, and of course, all 700 super sponsor spots are taken, and I was not a happy camper. ah! So I'm like, oh crap. So I end up getting just sponsor, and then eventually like the hotel room block opens up. So I'm watching like a hawk, and then here the hotels are being snatched up left and right, and I'm not used to getting anything but the Westin. So like I'm looking on the map where all these different hotels are located, and like, oh my god, am I even gonna get a room? And then finally, the last remaining hotel was available. The Wyndham was just like far like at the point there, the Three Rivers Point. So this will be the first time not only am I not gonna be at the Westin, but I could be a considerable distance away. So I'm gonna be totally reliant on the shuttle service, which is nice that they provide that, but it's gonna be a very different experience from all the previous Anthocons that I've attended. So I really have to plan out my schedule and the logistics, everything, and like when I'm gonna suit up for how long, because like before in the Westin, you go in suit. When you're done suit, you just run across the footbridge to your hotel, throw everything off, and you're back. But now I'm gonna be relying on the shuttles, but I'll make it work and make the best of it. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how it's like some of these cons like start up and then they die off. It's kind of a harsh word, but it's what it is. And like for instance, yeah, like so like the conferences kind of fizzled, but then Anthocon kind of stepped in and kind of took the mantle, and then throughout like the gosh, and I was kind of doing some cramming, some like last minute research, like cramming before a test, and apparently there's this con called Fur Affinity United, that took place in northern New Jersey, and so that's kind of like for the New York City area. So that had a good long stretch of scheduling, or strong long stretch of conventions. And then the last iteration of that was in 2019, and then COVID shut that down, and then they just never resumed. And I think prior to shutting down, they moved down to Virginia for that. But now they have this newer convention called Garden State for the weekend or something like that in New Brunswick, which is close by to where the Fur Affinity United was, and so that's cool that's up and running. Yeah, speaking of Fur Affinity, it's the one of the founders of Fur Affinity, which is like a giant website for mainly for art, but also they show like pictures and fursuits and all that. Dragoneer was the founder of that, and he passed away this past year as well. So that's another big name furry that we've lost this past year. Yeah, but the con was based off of the Fur Affinity website. Oh, that's a very good question, Brimstone. He's asking if I still have a passion for the furry fandom, or is it starting to diminish? It's a multifaceted question. Okay, so let me just say this. The quick answer is no. I have not lost my passion. I still have it for the furry fandom at large. I have lost. I'm just here. I am being brutally honest. I've somewhat lost my passion for YouTube for the aforementioned reasons, like losing like getting low on ideas, and like it's not much of a spark there, and of course the lack of growth. Uh, so there is that aspect. But other than that, not really. Like the furry fandom is a big part of my life. It's big, like most of my friends are furries. I always look forward to going to cons and other events. It I yeah I so the answer is no. I have not lost my passion. I'm trying to quantify it. Have it gotten more? Has it gotten less? Uh, I would say it's pretty much about the same. Yeah, it kind of maybe evolved over time, but I would say pretty much about the same. Yeah, that's a good question. Max says, I love the furry community with all my heart, and I'm so grateful and thankful to be a member of the fandom. I had good times and bad times. I learned that's part of life, and I'm very proud of it. Yeah, very well said. Yeah. Yeah, it's really crazy. Like, it's a large part of a lot of people's lives. Like they express this at length in the documentary Phantom, which by the way is still available on YouTube. It's free to watch. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. If you've already seen it, watch it again. Highly recommend. In fact, I just recently saw it again not too long ago. And interviews with both Mark Merlino, Rod O'Reilly, the interview with Uncle Kage, um, and then at the chair of that con, I think the name. Oh gosh, what was their name? Forgive me for not remembering the name. But yeah, they hosted Denver, and they were like only like 25 at the time, and they said they like actually chair 5 distinct cons, which is impressive. So it's definitely a labor of love, and a lot of it's just volunteer based, especially like the cons. Like of course, like the artisans and the dealers, they of course make money off of it, but like the cons themselves, like all the staff, it's all nonprofit. It's all donation based or off of the admission and or registration. So it's definitely a labor of love. Yeah. Let's see. I have bad days when it comes to drama as well as my migraines. I had good times when I share something now and extraordinary with the people I know and love. Yeah. Yeah, I hate drama so much. It's just, people have their beefs and then want to always make a scene. A lot of it's just for the clout or attention. And we would all be much better off if we didn't have drama. But it's just like people like going driving past the car accident is terrible, but people just can't help but look and can't help but watch. And unfortunately, it does give a lot of attention, and it's fodder for like a lot of the content creators. I'm not calling out anyone specifically. It's kind of like just the human condition where there's a controversy, and it's not just for the furry convention, but like anywhere, like the anywhere in social media at large, you can extrapolate that to any sort of content. So the controversies happening are kind of like everyone's swarming around, like, oh, this is the latest talk of the town. We've got to give our take on it and react to it, and it's subject material. It's fodder to talk about. Yeah. Pardon me, gotta break the magic. Whew. Got your breather here for a second. This is my own personal headless lounge. Yeah, this is HomeCon 2025. Here I am at my house. This is my personal headless lounge. So, yeah, this is my latest balaclava. I got this at I believe I got this at Philadelphia last year. It's from the F class. Yeah, we have the cool I think the name is Nico the cat, and they have like other characters like a fox and other things. Cool merch. So, yeah, if you're a fursuiter, balaclavas are an absolute must. They help keep the sweat to a minimum, help keep you somewhat cool. Yeah. You're right, brimstone is an addiction for some people, yeah. Ah, fresh air. Oh yeah, going back to my channel. So like I started recording like in my living room, like in my old apartment, like, and I would like stack cardboard boxes up. Very primitive, use record on my phone. And then I eventually moved to this apartment later in the year, and then I recorded in my living room here at this apartment. Still use it as the cardboard boxes, and then eventually I bought myself a camcorder with a tripod, so I upgraded. And then I think it was around Christmas of 2021 is when I designed my current studio here. It's like my spare bedroom, and kind of like all spruced up, and did all the ordered the wall lettering, and Fathead made the decals, and made my wall here, my this memorabilia wall. So I did all that at the end of 2021. Yeah. Max says I could possibly do the same thing with nail binding. Yeah, that's one of Max's big hobbies. Yeah, like needle knitting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm jumping back again to a bit of knitting and all that. So I get like information from different sources, bits and pieces, like some from YouTube, some from like the fandom and other documentaries, some from websites or like Facebook replies or Wikifur about people that knew these individuals. Like for instance, apparently Robert Hill got pointers on making fursuits from this guy named Sean Keller. He was actually worked for Walt Disney Studios, an animator. He's an animator and artist, and he made his own fursuits. And he was kind of like he was definitely what's the word I'm looking for? Not visionary, but like ahead of his time. Like his fursuit, it's still, of course, all fursuits back then were somewhat like limited and primitive, but like it was a pretty good quality for that time. And so I believe, yeah, Robert learned a lot of tips from him on making suits and all that, costumes. Brimstone's asking how old is Stalkaz. Oh, that's a really good question. I wish I had a more specific answer. I designed Stalkaz either at the end of 2015 or the beginning of 2016, somewhere around that time frame. So we're talking about, let's see, 7, 8 years, 9. No, be 9. I'm doing my math in my head. About 9 years maybe. Yeah. And then Chase, I developed, I want to say probably early 2021. So it's going on 4 years now for Chase. Yeah, that's another thing. I've always wanted to have a fursuit for Chase, my dragon character. Fuzzy in my nose is itching me. And I was really hoping to get a fursuit commission. Like, so I came across some of these really good makers, and unfortunately, I haven't gotten selected. Like a lot of makers, they only open like once a year or whatever. So I submitted my application, and it got turned down. Other makers, for instance, like Roofer, like they open every so often, and they have like this long queue. Like the queue for Stalkaz, for instance, was almost 3 years long. I applied for it at the end of 2016, and then he started making it the summer of 2019, and then got the finished product in October of 2019. So about 3 years from start to finish. Yeah. So I'll just have to try my luck again later this year. Brimstone's about 8 years old. Nice. All right, time to bring back the horse. Pardon me. I have to root the magic. All right. Yep, the horse is back. Yeah. So again, yeah, I don't know what it is about the history. I'm always just fascinated, like with the origins and how we got to where we are today, and all the contributions and all the efforts. And now pardon me, I'm gonna get a little philosophical. And then the other thing, I don't know. I'm a nerd. I'm a self-admitted nerd, and I've been watching like a lot of videos. What is this thing called, like determinism, which like the whole argument is does self-will exist or not? And I just the whole deal with determinism, like does, the whole cause and effect, like do we truly have free will, or are we influenced by external factors we can't control? Or like a lot of people ascribe to this thing called compatibilism, where there is some free will at some times, but not at other times, which kind of defeats the purpose. I'm still kind of on the fence, but I lean towards not free will. And there's this whole psychological phenomenon called the locus of control, the location of control. Is it internal, meaning you can control everything, or is it external, meaning you're just a puppet to external factors? I'm not one or the other. I'm leaning more toward external. There's some things that you can control, There's a little bit more that you can influence, but I think the majority of things in this world are just completely out of your control. And and then I forget who's this one philosopher. I think it was Carl Jung, the German philosopher, kind of like Sigmund Freud's like understudy, so to speak, who says you, and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know the exact quote, but you could do as you will, you could do as you want, but you can't will what you will. You can't want what you want. So effectively, yeah, you have these wants and desires, and you can pursue them and do them, but you can't desire what your desires are, and that definitely does resonate. So that ultimately defeats the whole. That's determinism. That kind of like ultimately defeats. You can't have true free will because you're a slave to your will. Yeah, I don't. You keep going on and on and on. It's one of those deals where like, you ask all these questions, and are there really any answers to them? It's kind of the same deal, and I'm not necessarily singling out Buddhists here, but like the whole, and I learned a lot of this in my high school world cultures class. Like with Buddhism, there's like the Four Noble Truths, and ultimately it says that desire is the cause of suffering, and so in order to eliminate suffering, you eliminate desire, and then the state of desiring nothing is called nirvana. But then that begs the question, and I thought of this myself. I'm not going to take, I don't know. I was thinking this myself, but probably other people thought of this before me. But is it the desire to not desire still desire, right? Like you want to not desire anything. That's still a desire. And then it's a frivolous and impossible pursuit, right? You can't completely eliminate desire. And so that's like, that's probably the hardest thing to do, is to not desire, is to get rid of desire. So it's one of these that drives you bad if you think about it too much. But that's kind of the thing. It's like the questions are there. We're just waiting for the answers, right? Anywho. All right, let's see here. Max says, for the balaclava, I would make a normal hat by a round start, then I would make a long chain of stitches and do the normal pattern as usual by attaching a chain, working them round. Okay. And Brimstone says, what's your thought on telephone's horse suits? They look amazing to me. Oh, I wasn't aware that they had a horse suit. I know Telephone has, of course, the Dutchy character. Yeah, I have to look into that. See, that's the thing, like, going back to philosophy and religion. I'm not going to state my specific opinions or beliefs or anything like that, but it's just one individual. You may or may not know him. I'm not going to give the name or anything. And he's very, like, despite your beliefs, despite if you agree or disagree with this individual, they're very respectful. They get right to the point. They ask direct questions, and they're very honest and open. Like they ask these really like valid questions, like really clear and right to the point. And you have to respect this person over it. And like whenever they're debating this other person is kind of like doing mental gymnastics, kind of twisting and turning and contorting stuff to try to support their side. And whereas like the one individual is like just asking these straight direct questions, and this other person is kind of like trying to move the goalpost around, and it's hard to, because like it's really hard because like when you're having a specific debate about beliefs, one person's approaching from a completely rational scientific standpoint, the other person with beliefs, it's pretty much all faith-based. Like, of course, there could be some factual historical evidence to support it, but at the end of the day, a belief is a belief. It's based on faith, and it's hard to debate between logic and faith. It's kind of like a disadvantage. So I don't know. It's very thought-provoking stuff, really. Yeah. Hmm. She says she has made several horse fursuits as well as duchies. Yeah. And honestly, I didn't even know she was a fursuit maker. But that's good to know. I'll definitely have to check that out. Max says, I understand where you're coming from. Make no means I'm ever judging your opinions or beliefs based on your personal experience. I think you should call it a truce. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I've said this before, and the whole concept of agreeing to disagreeing, I cannot emphasize how important that is. Uh, because we're all unique. We all have our own beliefs. Like, even if you ascribe to a certain belief pattern or religion, even amongst that specific religion, there's going to be disagreements in various sects and denominations, right? No one's in complete 100% accord, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly valid, and agreeing to disagree is it's a good thing to do. Look past our differences and embrace our similarities. Yeah. Oh yeah, these classes I got at Anticon. Fursuitclasses. Yeah, they fursuitclasses.com I believe is the URL. Hair in my mouth. And they make a whole variety of different lenses, different frame sizes. Yeah, really nice. So put these on. Voila. Style dog in the house. Yeah. Of course, the one drawback to these is the limited vision. It's harder to see out of, but I like the aesthetic. Yeah, so like looking back at the past and like learning all this furry history and all that, it just gives you a greater appreciation for the fandom and like all the opportunities and experiences and it's really good and like I've it gives me pause too. Like some things I've taken for granted is like wow, like none of this would exist or it'd be completely different if it weren't for specific individuals and their dedication and their um vision. Like going into uncharted territory and taking risks like with this conference zero. They weren't even sure. They had to invest their own money into everything, like do all the groundwork themselves. They weren't sure if it's gonna succeed and be where like it is now, or if it's just gonna flop. Once and done thing. So yeah, it took a lot of guts to do that. Bristol's like to be part of the Blues Brothers. Yeah. Oh, on that note, I think I'll wrap it up a little. Yeah, can't believe 5 years already. Can't yeah, 5 years, half a decade. Here's to another 5 years, hopefully longer. See what the future holds. Yeah. So this may sound kind of cheesy, but I'm gonna dedicate this stream to Mark Merlino, the Dragoneer, to um, Richard Concepcion, to Robert Hill, and all the past members of the Furry fandom that have departed us, and yeah, appreciate all their efforts and their contributions and their legacies, and help make the fandom what it is today. And can't wait to see what the future has in store and see where we go from here. Thanks a lot, Max. Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining and chilling with me and listening to me yap. If you know me well enough to know I'm not a talker. Yeah, I'm trying. I'm working on it. Something I'm trying to ongoing work in progress. But when I get latched onto a specific topic, I tend to do chat a lot. But yeah, really appreciate you guys for tuning in and spending time watching what I put out there for you, and I appreciate everyone in my life. And yeah, so on that note, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. This is Stalkaz. See ya.